And welcome to the Social Commerce and Engagement Day for eTail. Exciting, very exciting to be here. Again, thank you for the introduction. I'm Al. I'm the co-founder and head of client success at Social Annex. And I thought I'd start off the day by giving you a little bit of an introduction about how the day is going to run today. We've got some fantastic speakers lined up for the Social Commerce Summit, so let's get it started. Now, to get the day started, I'm going to present some data, some analysis that we've done over the course of the last few years at Social Annex. And this data, the premise of the data is based on over 100 e-commerce sites, 1 million plus social interactions, and 1 billion plus social applications that are running every month. So here's some of the data that we've learned from those interactions. And then I'll show how we can lead on to some of the speakers that are speaking today on those topics as well. So we recently did a survey of over 100 e-commerce and marketing professionals, asking them what, according to them, how important social shopping experience on their sites is. And we found that a majority of people, over 50%, said that that's on their near-term roadmap. So they're looking at adding a social layer to their commerce experience specifically, and it's a big deal for them. Over close to 30% actually said that's actually something they're already working on. So it's very exciting. I did this about 2 or 3 years ago. These numbers were very, very different. So it seems like it's getting a lot more exciting as we speak. So we dug deeper and we tried to find out within social commerce and engagement, or adding a social layer on their commerce experience, what were their major goals? What were they trying to achieve by getting a social experience on their site? And we found that the primary goal for most of them was acquisition. So that's still one of the major factors of where we're looking for social. Coming from the other side of the table, running a P&L of about $250 million at Teleflora, one of the things I found that was, most of our marketing channels are starting to get tapped out. There's not much you can grow in the other marketing channels. Social has a huge growth potential over the course of the next 5-10 years. And so acquisition is a big play when it comes to social. Interestingly, retention is starting to become one of the bigger factors when we come to looking at social as well. So during the day, we have some topics and speakers speaking on that topic as well. So today, we've got our topics divided into 4 different key areas, or 5 different key areas, to be honest. We've got social acquisition, which we touched upon a little bit in terms of how social can help acquire new traffic and acquire social data, whether it be email addresses and so on. We've got social conversion, which is primarily focusing on helping or creating a better user experience and engagement on the site, thereby driving better conversion rates. Social retention, which is driving loyalty within commerce. And then lastly, data and analytics that social provides you that can be used for other marketing tactics. And most importantly, how we can structure our organizations to cater to the growing needs of social, whether it be from a marketing side or a customer service side or different parts of the organization to cater to the growing needs of social there. So let's start touching a little bit upon social acquisition. Social sharing, as we all know, would drive most of the acquisition needs, where people are sharing, spreading the word for you, driving new traffic to the site. One of the things we found from the millions of social interactions that we saw is we were able to attribute about $7 in additional revenue on average across the 100 sort of e-commerce sites that we looked at. About $7 in revenue per share directly attributable to social sharing. Now, that revenue is not just because someone shared with someone and their friends came back and bought. It is essentially the addition of the referral traffic that came in that got new revenue, and the increase in revenue for those people that were engaged themselves by sharing and had a better chance to make a purchase, essentially, than they would normally, because they now became your brand advocates and were better conversion resulting from that. We also saw an increase of between 1.5 to 4% in traffic on the site, which is extremely sizable depending on how big you are, directly attributable to social sharing. Social sharing is one aspect of acquisition, which is traffic and new revenue, but also acquiring new email addresses or people for your database is extremely important, and social login was one of the primary drivers of achieving that. We found that over 40% of customers now prefer using social login to log into your site, which is extremely high compared to where we were 3 years ago. It was less than 7%. And so it's a huge driver now of acquiring information about your customers, data that you couldn't acquire before. So we've got some great speakers lined up for that, for talking a little bit more on these topics. We've got Chris, who's going to have a keynote specifically on social sharing, gamification, and how to add a social layer on your e-commerce site. We've got Jed Paulson, who's going to talk about their FP and Me program from Free People as well, talking later in the day. Moving from acquisition to engagement or conversion from social. Traditionally, we've always measured engagement in terms of what we call vanity metrics, right? Number of likes, number of tweets, retweets, shares, whatever you might look at. But a growing number of people in our survey said that they're now considering moving from adding or considering just their vanity metrics to considering metrics on their site itself by building a social commerce or a social network specifically within their site's experience itself. And we found that a lot of people are doing that to increase engagement on their site. In addition to about 59% of CMOs reporting that it has a big impact on SEO. So adding a social layer, adding social data and social comments and data on their site increases a lot of other marketing factors that they're interested in. And in our own sort of results that we've looked at, after incentives and an organic search, people or consumers tend to believe ratings and reviews and blog posts, so it works well from a consumer standpoint as well. So we've got some great speakers that are going to talk about e-commerce engagement and building a community on the site. We've got Jason Falls from Cafe Press speaking on it. We've got Rose Hamilton from Pet 360 and Kevin Metz from Cache speaking on that topic as well later today. So acquisition, conversion, engagement to retention. You've acquired the customer, you've got them to buy, now let's keep and retain them. This, according to me specifically and a lot of respondents, we felt was the most growing area when it comes to social over the course of the next few years, in terms of how we can use social as a mechanism to make your customers more loyal to you, essentially. So according to the survey, or according to the results that we came up with, about 54% of respondents said they would consider increasing the amount of business they did with the company if they were part of their loyalty program in some way or fashion. And over 54% in fact said they wouldn't even consider buying from other brands if they were part of one brand's program, essentially. So people are definitely interested in becoming part of these programs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in our topics as well. From then on to sort of understanding ROI when it comes to social. Measuring social ROI has always been the most difficult part of social. When it comes to commerce, we definitely look at some of the revenue metrics, right? So relating the shares or the engagement to actual revenue. We talked about getting, attributing about $7 per share directly attributable to sharing. So revenue is one way of measuring it. Engagement is another way of measuring it, whether it be through vanity metrics or engagement metrics, how you define it in terms of on your own site. But also social graph data that you're collecting, email addresses that are verifiable, can also be used for measurement. So here's some of the ways that we have seen success with measuring social data beyond just the revenue. One of the ways that we'll talk about later more today is how we can integrate the email addresses that are being collected from social into your ESP, and how we can use that. One of the things that we saw was the emails collected through any social login of any sort, whether it be sharing, were about 38% more likely to be opened and clicked, or actually 40% more likely to be clicked, because they were much more verified. It's an email address that someone's signing in using their Facebook profile. It is an email that they check more often. And so if you integrate that data into your ESP, those emails have a much better outcome, if you will. Social graph data that can be supplemented into your CRM. So today you have information about the name of the customer, what they've bought from you before. What you don't know is, their age, their location, where they live, how many friends they have, what they like, what other brands they associate with. This is social graph data that can actually be used to supplement your CRM and produce great results as well. And it can also help, there's different parts of social graph data that can help other marketing channels. One of the studies we did recently was the likes and interest data that's collected from the social graph, the different keywords that your audience likes. If you take those keywords and supplement your existing PPC campaigns, you'll find the overlap on those campaigns. And what we found was the keywords that match up with your audience's likes and interests have a higher click rate. You can increase the cost per click so you can rank higher, but yet maintain the same CPA at the end of the day, which essentially means that you can bid higher, you're there higher, but you're not exceeding your CPA goals from those keywords. So if you can find that overlap, that's something is very interesting as well that we've found. So we've got a panel specifically focused on what's next in social media, specifically how can we use that data later in the day today as well, where we'll explore more on this topic. And most importantly, to get the team ready to make sure you're getting the most out of social, it's extremely important that we have a structure defined in terms of roles and responsibilities. There's multiple people that play a role in social. You've got the marketing team that's responsible for possibly the site. You've got the customer service team that's responsible for responding to customers on social networks. And possibly multiple other teams, whether it be design, graphics, and so on, that you might want to pull together. And so we've got Eric from Nissan and Adam from Campbell Soup that are going to speak more on how they're aligning their organizations to best utilize social. So we're almost there. Before we start off the day, I thought it would be great to kind of show some vanity metrics about the top 4 social networks as we go along and what differentiates them as we see it. So Facebook, we all know, has the highest number of reach, right? Over 111 million users in the US specifically. But most importantly, we found that the referral traffic from Facebook converts the highest, about 2.6% conversion from the share on average taking place on Facebook back to the site and converting into a order essentially. Twitter, the referral traffic conversion is low. There's a lot more clicks, a lot more people are clicking and coming back, but the conversion from that referral traffic is lower. The average order value is also lower than Facebook. Facebook was about $80 and a bit more. But the main thing that was important or interesting that we found was 67% of people that follow you at some point in time will end up buying from you. So if that vanity metric is true, if that actually correlates, then it's a great way of saying you should be focusing on increasing or thinking about that vanity metric. So that was interesting for us. Pinterest, the biggest thing we saw from Pinterest was the referral traffic, at least now, is not converting as high, but the average order value for orders coming through Pinterest is extremely high. It's almost 60% more than Facebook, and then more than double of what Twitter gets, essentially. So very, very interesting where it applies from that standpoint. And then lastly, Google+. If you're focusing more on men, the best network to focus on would be Google+. And that's how I would categorize it. The traffic conversion from Google+ is not that high. The ability for it to drive new revenue is not as high compared to any of the other networks. but it's got a lot of usage as well.